Today we are going to talk to you about digitized workforce management, a powerful solution that Honeywell provides in order to really support digital transformation of personnel, workers, and assets. When you take a look at the way that digital transformation has evolved in the industry, a lot of great progress has been done on maintenance and operations, on production, and on finance, of course, because they have great infrastructure for digital transformation. But when you look at personnel and you look at asset, it's been really a mishmash of disparate silos of data that don't really talk to each other, a lot of manual processes, and of course the heavy use of Excel spreadsheet totally disconnected. So when you take a look at really the challenges that we're facing, we categorize them in three areas. Number one, business challenges. You've got increasing operation scale and control requirements that keep coming into the industry. Of course, we've got limited resource to manage these systems. And of course, increasing safety, security, and compliance requirements hitting the industry. Operational issues, well, we have data in multiple systems, a lot of point solutions that are not integrated, or silos of data disparate in nature that do not communicate together. Data consistency, that normalization of data, then is very difficult to achieve. A lot of manual error in data entry because you've got a human interface to the keyboard, as well as lost time in approval, process, checks, because of lack of a strong workflow engine. The business impact, of course, is growing inefficiencies, which impacts our productivity and, of course, profitability of scaling operations. A lack of real-time enforcement. I don't know what is happening in real time, so I'm trying to drive my policies down to the field without having an understanding in real time of how effective those policies are being maintained. And of course, increasing non-compliance, a lot of risk, and excess hour billings when you're talking about contractors, which we'll go into in a little bit. So we've gained an understanding of what the workforce management challenges are. The digitized workforce management system from Honeywell really provides a focus on safety, security, and compliance. It is an integrated offering for digital workforce management. It is seamlessly integrated with access control or Honeywell EIS system, as well as enabling integration into our ERP systems and our HR system for the workforce. It is a secure web-based system that enables easy access to the information in real time and allows you to leverage insight in order to fully manage your workforce across your footprint, across projects, and across your sites. So, taking a look at some of the key features, some of the key modules and functionality of workforce management. Contractor management. When you're looking at turnaround, shutdown, or you're looking at simply an operational site, there is a strong issue in managing contractors efficiently, understanding time on tool, understanding the flow of my contractors across my site and the work that is being done by those contractors. Our access management, of course, is a strong check-in, check-out process that allows us to understand who should be allowed in the site or when you enter the site and when you leave the site. Our time and attendance then can be guaranteed from capturing this data from the EIS and from the workforce management system. Compliance management is another layer that we add on to understand where the worker job function sits and an understanding of what additional training that person needs to be compliant, including the PPE that person needs to wear, as well as understanding the certification and recertification of both the training portion as well as the asset portion. Fatigue management is enabled because now you understand very clearly all of the rules that need to apply, from break time compliance to start time, end time, in order to align it with your corporate HSSE policies. mustering, another event that can happen, which we can take really from hours and sometimes days in heavy situation, right down to minutes. So being able to manage that mustering effectively can definitely focus and provide situational awareness to our EMS personnel, but more importantly, help us save lives. And of course, all of that provides a visibility and measurability through a dashboard that is very powerful and provides you with that insight in real time so that you can focus on doing what needs to be done to enhance security, enhance productivity, mitigate incidents, and certainly avoid catastrophic events. So that was a short review of the key features and modules of our digitized workforce management. I'd like to hand it over to Damien to dig a little bit more on the architecture of the system. Damien?
Thank you, Pierre. So the overarching architecture is necessary because we've talked about how do you bring all these disparate systems together. Well, those disparate systems need a framework, or they need a backbone to plug and play solutions into. But what you're trying to do is really, you're looking at bringing business function, and how does that business function actually flow into the operations. But by flowing into the operations, you're adhering to the policies of the organisation in real time. So you have the policy and business process flowing down. That's being governed by the architecture and the rules engine that allows the data sourcing for things like reporting and for compliance management to come back into the organisation. So what you end up having is the discrete business processes being automated through workflows and integrations in real time.
Damien, you've often told me that the secret sauce really of the workforce, the Honeywell Digitized Workforce Management, is the business rule engine that allows you to be able to manage very complex situations. As well, you also indicate that workflow is one of the strengths of the system. I'd like you to dig into that and explain that a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Sure, Pierre. So in understanding how to bring all that together, I can demonstrate the solution. So what we have is a single view of the workforce through the web application. So what we're seeing right now is really the front end. But when we're talking about that front end, we've also got to look at the rules engine and the workflow behind that. So what does that look like? So for a lot of our customers, as I mentioned before, we have specific rules that they have, which is actually their policy. Now in this instance here, I'm actually looking at the fatigue check of 12 hours. With many of our customers, they'll have their policy. So the policy is, I don't want any workers on site for more than 12 hours. So what does that actually look like? So we actually give definition to the rule. In this instance, we're calling it a fatigue check for 12 hours. And the actual description of the rule is here. Find all cardholders who have been on site for more than 12 hours. So we've got a business rule described by the policy, but now I want to actually enact that in real time. So what does that actually look like? Well, as part of the solution set, we actually create the algorithm to enact that rule in real time. The algorithm is actually a function of actually sitting down and working with the customer in terms of what does the variables of that actual solution look like, and then you have the algorithm to actually execute. And that's the secret sauce, I guess, in terms of the solution set. So what you're actually looking at then is a set of dashboards, because what we're trying to do is that we're enforcing the policy in real time. So we're actually denying workers getting on site if they're in breach of fatigue, they've got a drug and alcohol test, or they might have a missing competency. But when I start to aggregate that data and start to bring it up from a management perspective and a compliance reporting perspective, these dashboards become quite powerful in terms of isolating the data, interpreting the data, and actually actioning the data. So in this instance here, what I have is I can see all my workers who are on site, those workers that are in a safe zone, but more importantly, what I'm trying to find in the middle of a muster is those that are in an unsafe zone. So the visibility is in real time, but more importantly, it's very accessible to the end user. Similarly, in terms of what we've been talking about around fatigue, is that we can actually see who's in breach warning, but more importantly, who right now is in breach. And then I have the ability to click on their record, find their contact, because it could be their manager, or they might be in an isolated area. I may need to contact them in the case of an emergency as well. Similarly, once I've started to get this data together, what we can actually start to do is really do the analysis again in real time around what's actually happening on site. So in this instance here, I've got complete control in terms of the data around time on site, time on work, and in this instance, it's actually work in an on-work zone, so in a production area. And then I've got time on work, but in off-work zones. So that could be crib rooms or administration buildings away from the actual production area. So what then it allows me to see is from a budgeting perspective, I've actually can start to do things like my planned versus actual, which is really important from an operational perspective at the shift level. Similarly, what it allows me to do, and this is where the value proposition, I guess, comes in at two levels. Because I'm managing the contingent workforce, the contractor workforce, I've actually got complete control now around the qualifications of my subcontractors, but more importantly now, I can get some analysis around how long contractors have been on site, and I can actually drill down in real time once again to identify the contractors that are actually working for me right now, but more importantly, I can actually see those hours that have been accumulated for normal payroll, and again, hours that are accumulating for overtime. So these become quite important, particularly around shutdowns, when you're starting to, really trying to understand the time and efficiencies that you have during a shutdown period, and you're trying to bring forward the shutdown. Now what we're able to do is really have full control and create structure around your workforce.
Thank you very much. So a very powerful solution, and let's remember that the value proposition itself is across three key areas. Number one, for high-risk operation. Having that compliance visibility in real time provides a real power to HSSE and operations in conducting business efficiently and effectively on site. There's a reduced risk of penalties and, of course, harming the reputation of your company. But when you're taking a look at it from a productivity perspective, you can gain up to, for example, 80% benefit on your mustering time. So a lot of productivity ROI can be gained from the solution. And when you're talking about a large workforce, now you've got the ability to really reduce by 40% the time and effort for HSE admin tasks, because you've got an ecosystem they can leverage in order to be more effective and efficient. When you talk about the inspection process for PPE, you can reduce that inspection process by 30% and ensure that the equipment that is worn by your workers is up to compliance levels. The focus, again, from an HSSC perspective, is really to reduce incident and eliminate catastrophic events. When you have a distributed workforce, whether you're talking about contractors working in different areas of the plant or lone workers, this solution really brings additional powerful solutions layered on top of our digitized workforce management, such as our personal gas detection, our hearing conservation, and of course our real-time location systems that brings real granularity to the outcomes that you can develop with our digitized workforce management system. So I would like to thank you for taking part in this session today and remind you that you can get more information at www.hwll.co/DWM. Thank you very much.
Thank you.